Hey everybody, Brady Cable here. Today we had a really great podcast with Travis Mash of Mash Elite Performance. We dove a lot into training principles. He actually just came out with a book about velocity-based training, which is something we do a lot of here. So we talked a lot about that, but we also got a lot into the philosophical side of training between like lifting culture and things of that nature. Travis is a really smart dude, and I think you guys will really enjoy this one.
Welcome to Strength Chat with your host, not Chris Puffin, but the actual better half of the show, Brandon Sen. To my right is my protege, my young grasshopper, Brady Cable.
I think you took that a little bit far.
I don't think so. Well, audience, Chris and Dr. Rudolph is not here today. Both are on vacation, so today will be myself hosting, which is, I believe, the first formal takeover of the podcast. And to my right, as introed, Brady Cable. Say hi to the people, Brady.
Hello, everybody.
How are you doing, Brady?
Excellent.
I actually just ran out and grabbed Brady off a forklift, and so he's kind of been running around here a little bit crazy, but we're excited to do this podcast today. So we felt like, since the good Dr. Cadlub isn't here today, I think it would be fitting to base our funny story today off of him.
Sure, yeah, always is.
As many know, Dr. Cadlub is ancient. And by ancient, I mean old. Very old. Because he's not here, we can say these things. And he probably won't go back and listen. Dr. Cadlub's first name is Rudolph. And fun fact, he was born before the song Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was made. And that is a verifiable fact. So next time you catch him in the gym or
At a seminar,
at a show, just tell him you know. Figure out a way to reference that. I don't know.
give him a little reminder.
Yes. So that's all we got. What do you got, Brady?
Nothing new. But joining us today is Travis Mash. We're both very excited to talk to this man. We've got a lot of probably common ground to cover with velocity-based training, but we also want to talk about a lot of what Travis is doing with his athletes because he's turning out a lot of great ones already.
Yep. Travis Mash of Mash Elite Performance. Welcome, Travis.
Hey, man, I'm honored to be on the show, and I just want to say that that's pretty darn old. If you're born before Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, I mean, you know, that dude should be excited to be alive, I think. That's pretty cool.
That's what I'm thinking, too. So, Travis, you have one of probably the most prolific and varying sporting backgrounds of guests we've had on our show. I think probably the only other who's touched on so many different things in their athletic career was probably Chad Smith, being a thrower, pro strongman, powerlifter, now into jiu-jitsu. So, Travis, for our audience who's not familiar with you, give us a rundown of the things you've accomplished in powerlifting and weightlifting, and then some deets on your coaching background.
Well, I started with football. I played. I was lucky enough to play football at Appalachian State University, and then from there I went to. Our coach there told me I'm 5'7" and I'm a white guy, so I'm not going to the NFL. So he's like, maybe you should try, Olympic weightlifting, because I was pretty good at. We did even back then in the '90s. We did snatches and clean and jerks. I was lucky to have a really good strength coach, Mike Kent. He's still doing it. He was at University of Florida. I think he just got capped with everyone else there, but he's a great strength coach either way. And so I went to Colorado Springs. Wes Barnett was my first weightlifting coach. And for all that don't know, he's a two-time Olympian. He was, until this past year, he was the only male to medal in the World Championships, for the last 20 years. And then, we had Harrison Morris, their 17-year-old, do it this year. But so I started doing that with him. Things started going really well. I was invited to train at the Olympic Training Center under Dragomir, who's, for all that don't know him, he's a bronze medalist in the Olympics. I think that was the 88 Olympics, and he was an awesome coach. But then here's the problem. My dad got sick back in North Carolina, so he had terminal cancer, and so I was, posed with the question, do I stay, and train, for this dream of the Olympics, or do I go home and be with my sick dad? And I have no regrets of going home, to be with my, father for the last few years of his life. But back then, in the dark ages, there wasn't a CrossFit on every corner where you could, do snatches and clean and jerks. So I opted to powerlift, and probably looking back, was probably the better decision for me. Even though I was a good weightlifter, I was a better powerlifter. I went on to win the world championships 3 times. Back then, it wasn't quite as segmented. We had the WPO was kind of a really cool thing, and it brought a lot of people together. I mean, it brought Ed Coan, Wade Hooper, Brian Siders, Steve Goggins, Chuck Vogelpool. We were all, Jesse Kellum. We're all battling in the same place on the same stage, same equipment, same rules, and so it was pretty cool to to win that. And in 2004, I broke Ed Coan's record, his 100 kilo, 220 pound record. It stood for who knows over 20 years, and I was able to beat his record. Now, granted, I'm not saying I beat Ed Coan. It was different circumstances. We had monoliths. We had a little bit more equipment. Only equipment difference was we had one extra layer. Back then, they only allowed us to do double ply, where nowadays, I guess in the equipment-based places, it's like a free-for-all. You can do everything you want. But anyway, so that was powerlifting. I even bobsledded too, and did pretty good at that too. So that's it.
Yeah, that's very awesome. And the thing with equipment now too, and all-time records, that's kind of talking powerlifting. That's kind of the only thing that a lot of these top guys are chasing anymore. There's not a ton of head-to-head direct competition because the sport is so varying. You talked about you beat Ed Coan's record, but maybe you weren't stronger than Ed. Who knows? But even a guy that comes to mind is like Yuri Belkin breaking the 220,
he's a boss.
220 record.
Yeah,
totally different though. Like huge bar, 4 attempts, 100-pound plates. So
they had 4 attempts.
Yeah, I believe in the WRPF they have 4 attempts for each lift.
Oh, there's a big difference, but still, I admit Yuri Belkin of all the dudes nowadays, and he's the first one that makes me wonder if I could have beat him.
Yeah.
The other dudes, I'm pretty confident. I feel like I could have beat anyone else out there, but that guy, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
that 970 deadlift, dude, that's that's on a different level.
It's otherworldly.
And he's not stopping either.
He's not stopping. Yeah, well, I had the chance to watch him lift at the first U.S. Open, and he went like 5 for 9 and still crushed everyone. So that's I think that's his huge totals aside, having a day where you barely make one lift
and you win.
Yeah, and you win. Yeah, insane. Yeah. So
what makes him so good is I'm a Yuri Belkin fan. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I've never been a big fanboy other than Ed Coan. But, like, that dude is a master of his craft. And I think the American powerlifters could take some notes. They all look like, they look like bodybuilders, which is fine. I'm all about hypertrophy work. But, like, none of them look beautiful when they lift. Right. You know what I mean? Like, they do not look like they really, tend to their lifts like they should. Whereas Yuri Belkin is a technician. He is a master of powerlifting. And those dudes could take some notes from him. He looks like nothing, and he whips them.
Yeah, 100%. I've often said that, too. It seems like American strength sports and powerlifting really take their culture from bodybuilding, whereas these European guys take their powerlifters take their culture from weightlifting.
Right.
And you do definitely see that in the technical execution of the lifts.
This deadlift, man, is beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so smooth. And that's the thing too. There's certainly a lot of great American lifters who have a huge skill component to the lifts, and it seems like this is more prevalent in the USAPL than it is outside of that. And I'm not sure why that is. Whether it's because those guys are just practicing the lifts. It does seem like on the outside looking in, a lot of the top USAPL lifters train with a much higher specificity than a lot of the top lifters on the untested side, but that could totally be my own bias looking at it.
I agree too. And I don't care what you choose to do. I'm not your moral police, but I see what you're saying. I've gone now like 3 years in a row to the USAPL Nationals, and it does. The movement does seem to be much nicer. Yeah. And when you're not taking drugs, you're forced to you gotta take into consideration every little minute thing. I call it being a master of the mundane. So you gotta master every little thing because you can't rely on taking more and more drugs. So I'm assuming that has something to do with it.
Yeah, and there's certainly another side of that too. Some of these USAPL guys are I mean, there's ugly lifts all over the place.
Absolutely. I saw some squats I wouldn't have passed. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But for the most part, at the high level, I mean, you talked about not having that enhanced recovery. You need to execute those lifts really well. Otherwise, you're going to get injured. You're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah. When you get bent over in a squat and you're not, on stuff, you got a much higher chance of getting hurt. Or, best case, you're going to be out. It's going to be harder to recover and train again, from that. Whereas if you're on stuff, you can get away with that.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's switch gears a little bit here, Travis. Tell us some of the, this is going to be a really broad question for you, and I hope we can spin this off into some more specifics, but what the hell are you doing to get your lifters so freaking strong over there at your facility?
Well, I would love to say that I have this very secret, plan, but I'll tell you the number one thing, and if anyone denies this, they're lying. The number one thing that makes my lifters so good is the culture. You put a bunch of wolves in the same place, they're going to find out who's the best wolf. That's just the way it goes. It's as basic and as raw as it gets. And, we're talking about it, how roosters will find a pecking order, and that's exactly what happens, and then if you're not in the, in the place of the pecking order you want to be, you keep working hard until you can, live to fight another day. And so that's what happens. We got so many great athletes from our 9-year-old. We have this new girl named Lila who's taking the internet by storm. She's going to be amazing. She's already qualified for youth nationals. Then we got our 14-year-old, arguably the strongest 14-year-old in the world. He's insane.
He's insane.
He's insane. And here's what people don't know. They're just like, oh, he's a big, strong kid. Let me tell you about this big, strong kid. He can do handstand walks. He can do handstand push-ups. He can do muscle-ups. And he's 14. He's a freak, boys. He's 1 in a million.
I believe his Instagram handle is Madlifts. What's his actual name, though? I imagine that's not Morgan?
Morgan McAuliffe.
McAuliffe.
Yeah, he's my godson now. So.
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, for our listeners who don't know, definitely go check him out. He's squatting in the high 4s.
500.
500 now. My God. As I have to feel any worse about myself.
Yeah.
He's 14.
He did the in weightlifting, 4 reds is like a big deal, which is 220 kilos. So he did that, and then the very next week he busted out 500, and so then we cut him off. So we're not going to go heavy anymore this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. You touched on mastering the mundane too, which I love, and it seems like a lot of your athletes are about it, and they're doing everything they can to max. So you get these freaks, you get the culture, you get them doing everything they can to be better, and it's just how could you not?
Yeah, even Morgan. We're all about finding out and quantifying weaknesses. We have a pretty good little Excel sheet we've developed where we can pinpoint any kind of weakness someone might have, and then we obviously we're working towards. No one's perfect, so we're not ever going to develop the perfect human being that's completely balanced, but we're working towards it. And so that's the goal. It's ridiculous to think you're going to make this perfect person, which is, I think it's funny when you go to a chiropractor or a PT and they're like, oh, you're 5% off on your right side. I'm like, well, no shit, who isn't? And so, so that we really do work on the muscular imbalance, which is something I got from Louis Simmons. He's been talking about it for years. Our culture is important. As far as that goes, we're just really wise. We try to our volume. It fits the person. It probably, if you come in and there's 20 of our top lifters in here, maybe 2 of them will be on the same program because everyone's so different. In weightlifting, it's really, I'll tell you, here's the thing in weightlifting that's the hardest thing. You got your efficient lifters and non-efficient. Now, non-efficient doesn't necessarily mean they can't lift well. Nathan Damron squats, high bar back squat, 700 pounds, walks it out himself with a little weightlifting belt, crushes it. And but he can only clean and jerk 201 kilos. So people would say that's inefficient. Not really. He's just got really short femurs, so he's always going to squat a ton. And so you're not going to keep up your clean and jerk to that. Otherwise, he'd be clean and jerking 600 pounds. So it's ridiculous. But so you develop a program that fits Nathan, which is something more based along let's do more of the lifts. Then you got Jordan Cantrell on the other hand, just as good. Really, right now, Jordan is ranked slightly higher than Nathan in America. So it can't be the same. He's got every kilo I put on his squat, it equals a higher clean and jerk and snatch. So obviously my program is more strength based. It's planned out longer because a guy like him, you can't be like banging the squats and the clean jerks at the same time. So it's more of a 20-week program, whereas Nathan's is more of a 12-week or shorter program. So it's just it's just being able to understand science enough to where you can apply it in the most artistic way to your athletes.
That's a really good way to put it, because there's especially amongst internet strength coaches, we see the guys who are very much, the scientific quote studies guy versus the, total meathead coach who's going purely off experience. But I think there's this sweet, like, golden area right in the middle where that, that principle-based, science-based approach meets that experience and that creativity. And that's where those really great programs, I think, come from. And it's not, and I totally agree with that. I think we do a lot of great stuff with our lifters too, but we certainly don't have any secrets. As you mentioned, there's not that one secret program.
No.
But how do you go about building these individual programs for each of your lifters? Because you've got a ton of great lifters under your facility, and it's, I think the only other facility that I can think of like this that I would liken it to is like the old days at like Westside Barbell, where all of their lifters were in there just smashing away in there. I think all of those, they'll always say if you weren't at Westside, you didn't do Westside, right? So I definitely don't know the specifics of what went on there, but it seems like they were largely all following a similar progression. Like they would all do this one squat variation that day and then, break off and do whatever accessory movements might be more individualized. So how do you go about actually creating an individualized program for your lifters in-house with how good they are?
Well, everyone starts similar, and we use a very basic approach as far as you take the Phillips chart, and which is not the end all of everything, but it's a great place to start. For anyone that doesn't know, they should look up Phillips chart. And we try to stay somewhere in that optimal range at first, and you see how the athlete responds. Some athletes respond to higher volume, some respond lower. Like Nathan, responds really well to low. Jordan responds really well to high. But you got to start there. All of them start pretty much in a very similar program, and then from there, it gets based on the results and the way their body reacts, it gets tweaked each and every time to where a year down the road it's totally different. You got two people start the same. A year later, it's totally different. Like Nathan, for example. And we don't even do a squat program for him. He does whatever he wants. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And it's no point. It's pointless to put him on some awesome squat program to get his squat higher. Like, why? Squats. He's the strongest dude in weightlifting in the United States. So it's pointless. I want him to keep getting stronger. I'm not the guy that says stop, but I'm just the guy that says I'm not going to put this blistering squat program on you to add 50 pounds to your squat. It's going to take away from the work that we could have done on snatches and clean and jerks. But whereas Jordan, his squat routine would, make most people throw up. And so it's just, you got to start somewhere. We do use similar things. Like we do use, I wouldn't say West Side, but there's elements. There's going to be, there are going to be dynamic days. There are going to be max effort days. It's not going to be so, we're not going to be using different bars. Like I'm not going to use a fat bar to do clean and jerks. I'm going to use the regular bar. You can use the conjugate method without being so darn conjugate. Like you don't have to go so off the wall. And in weightlifting, specificity is very important. So you got to stay pretty close to that SAID principle, or it doesn't apply. Weightlifting and powerlifting is not so darn technical. So you can get away with, using the safety squat bar and, maybe you go back to using regular bar and your squat goes up, but that's not going to happen in weightlifting. If you're not snatching and clean jerking, your snatch and clean jerk is not going to go up. And I don't care who tells you that. They're lying. You have to do it. Like you're not going to get better at shooting basketball, boys, by throwing a football, are you? Yeah, you got to shoot the darn basketball, man.
Right.
And so weightlifting is much more like a, baseball, basketball sport. You got to get good at it.
I think even for powerlifting, Brandon and myself both bias pretty heavily towards specificity, just for what we talked about earlier, trying to develop as much technical proficiency as possible. Even though it is less technical than weightlifting, the better you can make that. I mean, like you said, you don't get to be deadlifting like Yuri Belkin without training specifically and getting better at the deadlift.
And
I agree.
Yeah,
100%.
And that's something that's definitely rapidly evolving too on the side of powerlifting. Brady and I, neither of us work with a ton of weightlifters, or any for that matter, but we're both huge fans of the sport. And I think one thing that drives us both to just watching and being fans of the sport is how technically efficient a lot of these lifters are, because it just looks nice, to watch someone execute a good snatch or a good clean and jerk. And specificity is a funny thing, because it is something that's rapidly evolving within the sport of powerlifting in terms of more people are, the pendulum is slowly swinging really high to specificity. Eventually it'll come back, but I remember my first day here, it was formerly Kabuki, or Elite Performance Center, now Kabuki Strength, 5 years ago. And even 5 years ago, I walked into the gym, and everyone was doing, and these were all raw lifters, I'll mind you, they were all squatting to a high box with bands. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. But then I was the only one to go after that and squat with a straight bar, just squat. And people were like, what are you doing? It's like, I don't know, I'm just trying to get better at squatting.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, when I do, even if I do like I don't really ever do the high box squats. I really don't even like box squats that much unless it's simply for the, I squat my power just 3 times a week at least. Sometimes more, but like the middle day is like a dynamic day. But still, even then, the percentages are going to be higher than maybe he might recommend. It's going to still fit. Philip's chart, and I use, I know we're going to talk about this later, but I look at velocity, and I am trying on that day to keep it somewhere around 0.75 meters per second. But and I might use a box for that just because it's easier to recover from. Otherwise, I'm not using a box. I'm squatting low. I'm going to do it the way we're going to do it in competition. We're going to use, at least 8 weeks out, we're going to use the bar that they're going to use in competition. And so, you still use variations, pauses, there's all kinds of things you can do, but I still I like to squat.
Yeah.
Benching, for example, you made a point a second ago. You said that you might do the high bar with bands, but you're going to finish with the full range of motion. I 100% agree. If you're going to do say board pressing with a bench press, it's nothing wrong with it. But I'm immediately, when it's over, going to drop down and do full range of motion. A lot of times, I used to PR after that because of post-activation potentiation. I take the board away, and next thing you know, I'm hitting a PR to my chest. I think that's why it's a key when I prescribe board pressing. I make sure they warm up to 85% to the chest. Add the board, work up to your 3-rep max to 2 board. Then you can go right back to 88% to the chest and work your way back up. Next thing you know, you're hitting a PR. So I'd never, ever finish with a partial movement, ever, even on deadlifts, anything. So, anyway.
Yeah, that's that falls in line a lot with how we do things for sure. You've put out quite a bit of information on neural priming or post-activation potentiation. So for our listeners that don't know, what we're talking about is taking an overloading stimulus and not doing it to the point of fatigue, but doing it to the point of what we might call neural priming, and then going and doing our main work. And you've put out a lot of information on different methods of that. Tell us some of the things that you've done with your lifters to use the PAP principle in a real-life setting.
Well, when I was doing it as a lifter, I was doing it by accident. For example, I would do similar West Side barbell. Say you do dynamic effort on squatting. Say you got a blue band, and you start with 50% on bar weight, and then you add blues. And then I would do his prescribed whatever volume. I would keep working up to a pretty heavy single with those blue bands, take the blue bands off, work on up straight weight. And normally I would, once again, either hit a PR or very close, because the cool thing about, I think bands are the best way to use post-activation and potentiation. And I tell you, if you're wanting to increase absolute strength, the bands, it's better to use them like I'm about to tell you than the dynamic effort. The dynamic effort, I really just did what he said because I respected him, but I would just keep going, which I think everyone there did too. Chuck Vogelpool, you ask him what the dynamic effort is, he has no idea what he's talking about.
So you basically warmed up with the dynamic effort and then proceeded to do your actual work.
Right, exactly. And so, but I tell you, the bands are awesome because you can be handling, 115%, at the top, and then in the bottom you're at 80%. I'm just making up numbers, but you get my point. Because obviously, as you go down, the band deloads, and so it's easy. It's still easy, relatively easy lift, but yet your body now remembers 115%.
Yeah, no doubt. Sorry, there's a giant spider who's repelling down onto our table right now that we're trying to keep a close eye on. But you talked about post activation. That's something that Darrington, who's one of our coaches, does quite a bit. He actually does it a little in reverse though, where he's doing like a box jump and then doing his main work, and he's not doing it so specifically. But one way that I've used it that I've really seen a lot of success with is in hypertrophy type cycles, where we'll do a heavier single, and it's actually always been with bands. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I've also found the best success with like a moderate to a moderate heavy band. Do a single with the moderate to moderate heavy band, and then go do your 70-75% work. And the idea being that
we do that too.
Hopefully you can get just a little bit more fiber activation in your hypertrophy work and make it pay off more. Which I've seen, anecdotally through velocity, which we'll talk about a little bit. But I've seen velocity improvements happen just from doing that. And so I don't know that it's a technique to build an entire program around, because you never want to be completely reliant on it, but it's certainly something to be strategically input into a program, I think.
It's just a good method, there's no one method that I'm going to base my whole program around. You know who you remind me of, by the way? You guys know Greg Knuckles?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
you remind me so much of Greg Knuckles.
Ah, thank you.
The way you talk.
I've been a fan of Greg for quite a while. I actually wrote an article for his site when it was Strength Theory. I think now it's Stronger by Science. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Greg, and really anyone who puts out really high quality information. Greg's a guy who he's really interesting, because he takes that really high level scientific stuff and is able to like communicate that with me or Brady
and me.
But he's also a guy he's not so dogmatic on that side, that he actually comes back and he's like, check out Travis Mash has done this with his athletes, so you should always bias towards that and then try and find how science fits into that,
Yeah, so he's cool. He started with me. I don't know if y'all know that.
Yeah,
but we do. I found him at 14. I was at the gym, and somebody's like, you really should see this kid. And I don't know about you guys, but that happens to me like every other day. And I'm like, all right. Assuming I'm going to see
your skeptical eyes on.
Yeah. I go back there, and this 14-year-old kid walks into the gym the very first day of his life and bench 315.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
And I'm like, I work with him.
That must be nice.
Yeah. And so, but about a year or two later, the dude could program better than me. So I'm like, you're out of here. You're fired. Not true. True. He was amazing. So.
Yeah. No,
and a good buddy.
Yeah, that wasn't that long ago either, was it, that he was working with you?
No, 3 years ago. Yeah. I actually married him and his wife. Like, they taught me into doing that whole, become a minister online.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I did that. I'll never do that again. I just did not feel like that was my calling. Yeah, I've had too much past in my life. I'm like, I shouldn't be marrying anybody. So he's the one and only. He can say this, that Travis Mash married him, and he'll never do it with anyone else again. So
that's awesome. That's actually that's really funny.
Yeah, that's a pretty good example though too. It seems like you grow pretty close with a lot of your athletes. You're a pretty tight bond with a lot of them that you're close
I love it. Once in a while, things happen, but for the most part, I still love all of them. John North. It's cool. Here's what's really cool as a coach is when you see them go on, and hopefully they're going to reach their strength goals or their athletic goals. Like Tommy Bohannon, one of my, he's a fullback for the Jaguars. Looks like he's going to be all pro this year. He scored 2 touchdowns. That's cool. But it's also cool when people like Adi Zucker. I don't know if you know her, but she owns Working Against Gravity, and she was one of my athletes. Now she owns his multi-million-dollar business, or John North, off doing his thing, or Jared Enderton, who's, huge online now. It's just cool to see them go on and become, good citizens and, provide content for people. Greg Knuckles. I mean, it's crazy the people who have come through our doors and gone on to do amazing things with their lives. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, you can only influence somebody directly so much, but then when they take that and they spread it, they get their own path and they spread it out in the world.
It's
and
cool.
Do great things like that.
It's like I have multiple daughters and sons out there that's killing it, and that's probably it's not probably that as far as a coach goes. That is my most proudest thing. I love to talk about Adi and John and Jared, and Greg Knuckles is probably I'm a little bit more lean more towards him just because, I saw him since he's 14 years old. But they've gone on to do, he was in Forbes magazine or something like that. Yeah. Greg Knuckles. Yeah. If you guys only knew where he's from this little town, called Moxville, North Carolina, which is in the middle of nowhere. And so it's just cool to see him do what he's done.
No doubt it's cool, and that's something that I've said quite a bit as a coach. You never quite know the impact that you have on someone. You definitely know that how much volume they're doing and what their average intensity is and all that kind of mumbo jumbo. But really, you never know, like something that an athlete will latch onto and something you say. I've had a ton of interactions, even with my own clients, where I'll be talking with them and I'll hear something that they say and it's like, oh, that really clicked with me, and now that's something that I go on to start telling other people.
Yeah.
So you never quite know the real impact you have on someone's life, especially in a coaching setting, because you definitely have a unique role as a coach.
I think coaches need to really think about that more. Sometimes coaches get so caught up in what their athletes making them look cool that they forget we have a big responsibility in helping them grow up as human beings. I take it very personal. I want my athletes all to go on and be good husbands, good wives, good fathers, good mothers, good business people, and so that is what I pride myself in. I have a lot of athletes who go on to kill it in their sport, but I'm kind of bored with that. Yeah. I love it when they kill it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, that sounded terrible. I didn't mean it.
No, it didn't at all. It didn't at all. You just, you've been a really successful coach, and you're seeing some of the other benefits of doing that. And we actually just had so we do a once a week live coaching call with all of our clients and anyone who's ever been to a seminar where they can jump online with us and just chat. And one of the questions that came in last week was how do I design a strength and conditioning program for youth athletes, specifically 10 to 14 years old? And the question was coming from a nuts and bolts, what exercises should I be doing? How do I organize? I was like, man, these are kids. You start teaching them discipline, teach them consistency. Yeah. Worry about all that other stuff later, because this is going to affect them way more than putting 10 pounds on their back squat in between basketball and wrestling season.
I tell you what, at that age, the key is make sure those dudes are having fun. Yeah. Because you can, that 10 to 14 age, if you make it fun and they laugh a lot, they'll be there forever. Yeah. But if you're super dogmatic and you're cracking a whip on them, they probably ruined it. Yeah. No, man, my kids, we laugh a lot. There's a really cool picture. We just had our grand opening in our new facility this past weekend, and there's a picture of me and my 14-year-old freak Morgan, and he's about to go up and lift 330 pounds in the clean and jerk, and we're laughing, and it was like my favorite picture now, because I try not to. He's got a long career, so if I'm stressing him out at 14, it's gonna be a long several years. So it's just we try to have a great time, and I want the gym to be a place where they come and just have a good time. And so, and then when they're 20 years old trying to make the Olympics, then we'll get serious. You know what I mean?
That's something that we're definitely striving for here too. Is that culture side to that gym family? And you mentioned culture being one of the biggest things that set your guys apart at your facility, or what's made your facility so great. And you talked about putting all of the wolves together, and eventually someone's going to come out on top, and they'll figure out their own hierarchy. But outside of that, everything that you're saying here contributes to that culture big time. You genuinely care about each person that's in there, and I think that contributes huge to the culture when you have someone in a leadership position who is almost putting you first. That's where the culture is, and that's something that we strive for here a lot, and something that hopefully is always improving. So it's awesome.
It's hard, they know it too, because we've worked super hard to stipend some of our athletes. We about $2,000 a month we spend in stipends for our athletes, and so they see. I'm not a multi-million-dollar business. We're inching up there. We're getting close to maybe a 1 million, but we work super hard to provide for our athletes. I'm always hustling, and we've got great sponsors, and they see that, and my athletes know that. I started this whole thing with a goal to provide these athletes with everything they could possibly need to reach their goals. They know that that's our mission, and they're behind me in that, I think. And the more things, I tell you what, as a coach, the best thing can happen, if your athlete comes into hard times or some struggle comes, that is the best time in the world to, create a bond that will last forever. Like Nathan Damron, my, stud, he something happened and he lost his stipend from USA Weightlifting. So it became like a tough time. And so we got together, we wrote a book together, we put on seminars, here and there. I would help him out. And I tell you what, we're closer now than we've ever been because I was able to help him through a very tough time. So when your athletes have tough times, and I'm not saying everyone has to give money to their athletes. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if you're just there and you can help them, give them ideas, sometimes when things are rough and you're an athlete and you don't have a lot of money, it seems like it's impossible to get where you want to go. If you can just be there to help them and, keep things sane and give them ideas, and I tell you what, that's the biggest difference. That's when you create that bond, and that's when, a person believes you. And then that's when in the Olympics I put on, 220 kilos on the bar and tell him to lift it, and he knows that he can do it because he knows that he can trust me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
100%.
You went so far beyond just cutting him a check, too. You talked about helping him write an ebook, taking him to seminars, and all that stuff. You showed him how he could make that for himself, too, instead of just giving him money and saying, hey, figure it out. No.
I'm helping him do, he's doing a website now, and I'm giving him ideas on what he can do to, get some passive income. And he's a great kid. He's super smart. Everyone knows him as this big, strong weightlifter who's, he does this whole thing, train stupid, which he doesn't train stupid at all. But he's very intelligent. His weightlifting IQ is off the charts. So.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's cool that you're setting stuff like that up, too, because there's really no money in weightlifting, especially in powerlifting. So the fact that you're able to help provide for those athletes and get them in a position where they can focus on training and focus on just getting better, that's huge.
There's more and more. I don't know if y'all know this, but USA Weightlifting provides some pretty good stipends. I don't know if y'all know this, but guys CJ Cummings and Harrison Morris, they're making upwards of $6,000 a month, and they're in high school. Yeah. So, and now even the United States Olympic Committee has committed. This was so cool, boys. They said that anyone who got top 8 or higher in the world, they would kick in another $1,000. Wow. And so Nathan and I are in the B group. We thought that this is his first year. It's his first year as a senior world team member. And we have a great meet. Sets a PR total. He clean and jerked 201 kilos, 442 pounds, and snatched 157 kilos. And so, I'm not good job. I'm proud of him. He qualified for a good stipend with USA Weightlifting, plus I stipend him. So he's happy. But then people start bombing out, and next thing you know, he gets 8th in the world. He gets another $1,000. Now that was a cool moment.
That's very cool.
Now,
is that pretty?
He's making about the stipend at this level is maybe the last 2 years.
Sure. Okay.
So yeah. So when I was there, it was believe it or not, when I was weightlifting, it was pretty good. And then something happened. I think they made some bad investments and lost this big chunk of money there. And so then it was forever. There was 0 stipends, and then thanks to CrossFit and the internet and all this, now we have our membership increased. So now there's this excess money, and so now they're able to do that. I'm really curious why powerlifting can't do that, but that's a whole nother story. I'm really suspect of USAPL why they can't provide more money, but whatever.
That's a very hot topic.
Yeah, I think we both kind of wandered around nationals looking at all the money that was being spent on stuff, thinking a little bit of that. But part of it's the fragmentation, I think. But USA Powerlifting specifically is growing so much that
it's huge, man. They even make their guys. I mean, I'm not hating on him, so I don't know his whole story because I really like him and Priscilla. They're awesome. Right. But something either. They need help, maybe, with getting more funds, but they have the group, they have the people. So, but if you make it to the World Championships, you have to pay your own way, and you even got to pay them.
You're paying entry too, yeah.
Yeah, so it's
it's not a cheap entry either. It's a few $100s.
Yeah.
Plus, you're talking international travel a lot of times, which is minimum $2,000, especially for these guys. Where'd they just go?
I forgot the country.
Because it was some little tiny. Anyway, it was not close to us. It's definitely close to some of the other team members of other nations. But when we're talking about USAPL being one of the biggest players in international powerlifting right now, it is kind of strange that there is not some support for at least the open class on the in the world team. I can totally understand their dilemma because there's so many divisions in just raw powerlifting, age divisions, weight divisions. So it can. I don't see it. You can't give money from the first teen class all the way to the last masters class for every weight class. But
I do that. Nor does USA Weightlifting.
Exactly.
For the open.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for the open though, like, come on, like those are the people growing the sport. Those are the people with the big social media followings. Those are the ones representing on the world stage. So
like Mike Shearer. That dude's amazing. He was on my podcast, and that guy is brilliant.
Oh yeah, I love Mike a lot. We had him on here too, and he, he was someone who really influenced me really early on in some of the training ideas that he was talking about. So he's done a lot of great things for just strength in general, not even just powerlifting, but strength training. I would say.
Yeah. Well, something I know we both wanted to hear a little bit about how you're working with this is velocity-based training. So it's something that we've been using for quite a while, and we just saw that you released a book on it. So we wanted to get a little bit of how you're using it in your training.
I released, the book was mainly to, there's a lot of information out there for strength and conditioning. Brian Mann, who I'm a fan of, he's done probably the most. But I'm in Winston-Salem, so Ryan Horn has also done quite a bit. Who's the head strength coach for Wake Forest basketball. He told me a lot. My friend Spencer Arnold is actually doing a ton of it with weightlifting already and seeing crazy results. But here are a few ways, because right now, in my opinion, there's a lot of research that needs to be done, but there are a few ways it can definitely be used. Like, for example, if you want to work with athletes and make sure they never miss, you could say work up to a 1 rep max squat as long as you're at 0.5 meters per second or faster. Or, once you get up with some individual data, you might be able to guide. Some people can, most people miss around, when they start drifting below 0.3 meters per second. But some people are freaks and can go 0.16 and you can just grind. Like, what is the dude, my boy, Steffi Cohen?
Hayden Bow.
Right.
Hayden Bow. He was one of my, sorry, Hayden. But like that dude, I guarantee his meters per second are like around 0.15.
Yeah.
He's a grinder. But like once you get that data, you can just say, all right, Hayden, work up to 1 RM, but keep it at around 0.25 or higher. And so that prevents misses. And so misses is where when you start missing in the gym, that's when injuries start happening, technique breakdown starts happening. So you can avoid all that. So that is a big one. Also, if you train the athletes, like, I train a lot of football, basketball, softball. So I want to make sure that I'm working on speed too. So I'm wanting to work on that, strength, speed, strength, areas, zones, I guess you'd say. Yeah. And so it's important I have something to quantify that. I can look, and maybe if I'm coaching them, I know that, the bar speed I'm looking for, I can eye that. But like, what if I have another coach? Like I have Sarah, she's CSCS, she's a brilliant strength coach. She hasn't done it long enough to know the speeds like I do. So it makes sure that if I'm not here, like I know that, if I want them at 1.0 meters per second or faster, it's going to be there because there's a machine that lets them know. And so, we all know too, like if you're wanting fast athletes, on the court, on the field, like you're wanting that speed because, once you start getting the accelerated speed and below, which is below 0.75 meters per second, you're going to start, your antagonists are going to start to be activated more. And that's not, even though you want some of that, no doubt, and because that, contributes to being faster. But a lot of, probably a majority of your time needs to be spent in that 0.75 or faster. So that's not the case. So then when people go sprinting on the court or on the field, it's very important that the antagonist cuts on and off, agonist, antagonist. Because if not, you'll have that slows you down. If you're trying to extend your leg and, you're trying to do hip extension and your hamstring is, trying to activate too, it's going to slow that extension down. So
you work with a lot of team sport athletes, so it's cool to see you implementing it there, which is starting to happen in a lot of colleges too, but we primarily work with powerlifters, and we've been doing it with them in different ways.
Oh yeah, with powers, there's so many ways you can do it. Like number one, teaching intent. Like you'll tell someone to, squat fast. They literally just don't know what fast is. But when they finally do a 0.8 meters per second, you can show them. Then they can attribute the number to what just happened. And they can start to get it.
Yep,
so there's so many ways. Coaching, teaching the athlete intent, teaching new coaches what does it look like, what does it really. And I tell you, the biggest one that made me want to do it is in my career, we've had one major injury. And when I was gone, a younger coach allowed, like, one of my football players, I'm talking a D1 recruit, go too heavy on cleans, and his form was breaking down. And then he did the infamous elbow to knee and broke his wrist.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was not good. And so, like, this is one way I can make sure if I'm not there, I can avoid that. I can be like, don't go, with cleans, don't go below 1.2 meters per second. You know what I mean? And so, and if they do, then they're fired. Then that's not an accident. That's
Right.
just, so there's so many ways to use it. And the reason I wrote the book is I wanted to, break it, make it simple for people and, teach them there's a lot of ways. You don't have to be completely, velocity based, which we're not, but, there's so many ways to use it. And there's so many ways that it's a tool. It's a tool like anything else, but it's a great tool.
Yeah,
So.
we use velocity-based training for probably about 70% of our online athletes that we have. We'll send them a device when they sign up for us, and we use it.
That's cool.
Yeah, we started out using it really for that exact reason that you said, and that was to guarantee, what they were doing. If they were following this, velocity zone or this meters per second, we knew what was happening. So,
That's awesome.
One of the biggest gaps that we find with online coaching, we call it like virtual coaching or remote coaching, whatever, but is you don't have that same traditional coach-client relationship, so we have to get some other tools in the mix so that we can manage those things, and that's exactly why we use it too. The best way that I've found with it is through using velocity zones, which is something that you talk about a lot in the book, bar speed. Is the use of velocity zones, and especially in team training. We had Brian Mann on our podcast quite a while ago when his book first came out. He also has a book on, I can't think of the title of it, but if you type in Brian Mann velocity book, you'll find it. Really great read, really pretty scientific, but more applicable to team sports. But you talked about the idea of qualitative training. So the idea that we can train for accelerative strength or speed strength, if we just use percentages, like we have an idea of where they are, but we don't guarantee the intent, right? And we don't guarantee that we're not falling into like a fatigue too quickly. So, you can imagine if for all of our audience, if you were squatting fives and you were to do like infinite sets of fives, at some point you would no longer be training for accelerative strength, and it would become some other strength quality because you'd be moving too slow. So the idea behind
probably absolute strength,
eventually, yeah. And so it's a way to guarantee the training effect that you're having and a way to manage fatigue. We, Brady and myself, just got done presenting on this topic to the Dodgers strength and conditioning staff, and we talked about the idea of velocity-based training as a means for them to manage in-season fatigue. And the way that we would do that is through like quality thresholds. So we would say you have this velocity zone that you want to hit, and your quality threshold is maybe 10%. Don't let yourself get 10% outside of that zone. If you do, you're done. Or in an off season, the quality threshold could be much higher. Or if you're in a hypertrophy block, the quality threshold could be much higher. But the idea was to keep the quality of the training exactly as we wanted it, and to not let because fatigue's a really hard thing to manage, and it's a really hard thing to predict. Like
especially in baseball, that long season.
Yeah, it's much easier in powerlifters because the training's very mundane, and mostly the fatigue we have to account for is like lifestyle things because they have jobs, they have families. They're not these pro ball players or anything like that. A lot of them, we don't have a stipend program like you do, but we do have a sponsorship program where we'll pay some monetary amount for athletes, and we'll handle their training, and that's the way that we do it. But a lot of these guys, we have to account for fatigue in other ways, and a lot of it for us comes through velocity-based training. So I was super excited to see when you published that book with Spencer Arnold. I have the book, and I can tell you for anyone, it's an awesome read. Very practical information, and there's actually a few training programs in there with velocity integrated into it, which is something that we're not finding a ton yet. A lot of people are talking about velocity from a theory standpoint, and like, here's how you would do it. But you've done something really cool and said, here's how it actually looks in a program, which I think is important. So
Spencer is the man with that stuff. Like, he has spent years now studying it, but he's the first person to use it like exclusively for weightlifting. Like, I use it as a tool, but I don't use it exclusively. Yeah. That dude does every single session based on velocity, and his girl Jordan Dela Cruz just destroyed everyone at the American Open. It's so cool, like because we're. Spencer's my boy, and his girl Jordan Dela Cruz won best lifter for women, and my guy Jordan Cantrell won best lifter for men at the American Open. Yeah, so it's funny because we both wrote that book, but anyway, maybe we should learn velocity based training. But his girl took a huge increase, and here's what makes it even cooler: is it both of our guys, whether it's Jordan, either the Jordan boy or the Jordan girl. Jordan is a 53-kilo girl. So obviously, when she takes say a 5% increase in total, that's massive. When you take her body weight into consideration, and she just had a massive, PR'd every single thing. And my Jordan, he has increased his total in weightlifting 30 kilos in 28 weeks, which in weightlifting is a massive increase, especially because neither one of them went up in body weight. It's all like. The relative strength just got better. And so it's, anyway, I'm bragging because it was just this year has been like a roller coaster. Like, our national championships were the worst meet of my life. But then we finished out, I would say that it's hard to argue that we're not the best team in America since we sent, 3 to the world championships, which is everything. Yeah. We sent 3 to senior worlds, 1 to junior worlds. 1 to junior worlds and 2 to youth worlds. So we cover all the bases. Yeah. So I'm excited. Been a good finish. So
that's what it's all about. I mean, you definitely make a compelling case for having one of the strongest, best teams, and who are really like more of a family. One thing we didn't get a touch on earlier that I was really curious about was because you do a lot of work with online athletes as well. You got the Girth Brooks and a handful of other guys out there. How do you? Because it's probably quite a bit easier to have this culture in house with your athletes and to manage them there. But how do you do it online? What's different with your online athletes?
Well, a lot of them that do the best visit all the time. Like Jordan Cantrell, who's killing it right now, went to the World Championships. We did that online, and so. But here's the key: is that we talk almost every single day. I talk to him, communicate with him, probably more than I do my own in-house athletes. But then when he comes here, he's instantly part of the crew because he's been here so often. And now he's been on, 3 Team USAs that so has Nathan been on. So, as soon as they come, both of them, skyrocket. Yeah. I tell you, Nathan, when Jordan comes, Nathan probably benefits the most because Nathan was looking kind of so-so, getting ready for the World Championships. And then Jordan comes out here. Next thing you know, he looks like Superman. And so,
yeah, he has to.
But same with Evan Girth Brooks. His name's Evan, but
his first name's not Girth. That's really disappointing.
Sorry. I hope I didn't ruin it. But, he sends me a video almost every single night. We communicate a lot. He's an interesting dude. A lot of people, he's so out there and crazy. Like, people sometimes give me a hard time because seems like a lot of those athletes. Tend to end up with me like John North or him, and I don't know, but I just like edgy. Like, even though I'm kind of edgy, but I guess I'm a family man. Like, as far as my life is very normal, but I just like edgy people. For some reason, I am attracted to edginess. And so Evan is such a good dude. Like, we talk, and just like anyone else, he has ups and downs, and I love to be there for them. And, I think the key to online is communication. We have a lot of coaches now that, that work with our athletes online, just like you guys do. And, the better that the athlete communicates, the better they're going to do. And just like anybody, if you get that online athlete who doesn't communicate, then it's not going to work well. And so, or if they have unrealistic expectations, it's like you got to figure that athlete out. Like if they expect me to increase their total 30 kilos in 4 weeks, well, they have unrealistic expectations. Maybe there's something such a terrible flaw in your technique that I did it, but odds are it's going to take me some time. And so, it's just same as if they come here. Sometimes when they come in-house, they have unrealistic expectations. Key is to set those expectations up in the beginning and tell them this is something that we develop over time. And we've done some great online. I have Zach Myers. He got bronze at nationals last year, and he's in dental school. And so just talked to him last night. It's about, don't take so many clients that you can't have relationships. That's why I have other coaches. Yeah. I have some people take advantage of it and some people don't. The ones who take advantage of me as their coach, they do well. The ones who don't, well, they don't do well. So that's on them. I can't make them dial their phone or I can't make them send an email. So, but we have produced studs online, like December Garcia. She's here now, but she trained with me online and she went all the way to she bronzed at nationals too. Should have won. She got bronze by 1 kilo. So first place got 201. Second place got 201. She got 200 kilos total. But all this online, so it's just a matter of communication. Like if you want to make these people who are out there saying that a lot of coaches, old school coaches, be like, "Oh, this online stuff doesn't work." Well, my online dudes are beating your in-house dudes, so there's a problem. But it's just a matter of communication. So I don't know. I'm assuming you guys agree.
Oh, 100%. And there's so many. You got to be a little strategic with it too, or at least you got to plan ahead for this kind of stuff. So we have quantitative systems that we'll use to manage training variables and like feedback objectively, and then we have our subjective routes, whereas like they're constant feedback to us. We're watching video, and that's exactly why all of our coaches, we required them to actually either already be in Oregon and be training here or move to Oregon and work out of here, because we weren't going to do the, we'll have a coach who works in New York, we'll have a coach who works in Colorado, even though it's all online. Like we had to have them here so that we could develop that culture. And
my coaches are here too.
It's so important. I think that's something that's really looked past, especially when people are looking for a coach, is like, all right, well, where are these people even at? What culture is there? And communication for us is huge, and that's why we salary all of our coaches too. Like that's their job. Your job is to coach, and they don't have huge client loads. We're not doing the 200 people per coach thing where we're just sending out a template and template, fill in your numbers, template. So
that's good, man. There's so much of that out there. I'm glad you guys are like that. Like we don't, we charge for our services, and so like, but if I don't, like if you want to go the whole $20 a month route, well, what do you expect? Right. Then you're going to get a template and it's going to be crap. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. And so I'm not going to do that. I refuse to do the whole, I'm going to pull my pants down because you do. Like if you want to, go ahead. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to belittle, something I spent my whole life developing.
Yeah. So, well, that's exactly how we feel, and that's part of the reason why our price point's fairly high in terms of the industry, but it's because we're doing everything from scratch for each person. We are actually coaching people. We're not just programming for people, and I think that's the big distinction. So,
I agree.
There's unfortunately there is a lot of that out there, but there's also a lot of great people doing it, like yourself, your coaches there. Guys like Mike T, Greg Knuckles even has coaches who work with him, and so I think it is possible. It is possible to do it really
totally possible. Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of times when we go to nationals and we have a national team, I mean, probably half of those people are from online people. So, obviously it does pretty good,
Yeah, and in the same vein of having all your coaches on site, it helps tremendously to have that continuity and that similarity of philosophies. Like we don't have the kabuki strike method where this is what we do for every person every time, or this is how we approach everything. And each coach has their own individual style, but at least when we're all in person, we can talk, flush out ideas, develop,
and learn. Learn from each other.
Exactly.
That's the biggest way that our continuing education is like we'll pay for coaches to go to different places, but we learn a ton just from talking to each other. Like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And so I think that's so important.
Yep. I would love to come out there and see what you guys are doing. I'm like very intrigued. I love what you're saying. So now you're like I respect that. So many of these other places, I'm like, But that sounds really cool. Most of my coaches are like my athletes too, but they're athletes that have their masters in exercise science and their CSCSs, and they're very smart. Like, Jackie Bigger is one of my top national athletes. That girl is smart. She might be a better coach than an athlete, and she's a super duper athlete. She's almost so good of a coach that I'm a little bit jealous. She might be getting some better results than me, so I might have to start telling her some stuff that's not true, so she'll mess up a little bit.
Hey, go do that. Go hook a band to that snatch so that person can go faster.
No, I did not say that. People already think that I'm crazy and snatch with bands. I don't. No band snatching here. So.
Well, I'm glad that we can dispel that.
Yeah.
Not that either of us thought that was just a something absurd that felt like would definitely throw off the young grasshopper coach.
Yeah.
So
not true.
So Travis, we're kind of running up on time here, but one thing I wanted to finish out with was to get, especially anytime we get a great coach on or a great coach who's been an athlete. I want to get your ideas on what do you think separates those people at the very highest level that you work with from everything else. Obviously, genetics are huge, but what are the similarities and the commonalities that you see between these freak athletes that you have?
Man, there's a couple things. It's like, number one, the best of the best dudes. I'm referring to the people who have a chance at the Olympics. They master the mundane. They do the little things. Everyone comes to practice. Like, everyone is going to work out every day because we like to do the sport we do. But so don't be crying because you're doing that. Everyone's like, I work out 6 days a week. It's because you like to, man. Yeah, of course. So it's like, what do you do when you go home? Are you how are you on top of your nutrition? If you have someone helping you, like we do nutrition, with Match Elite. And so I'm like, are you following our recommendations? Are you, showing your food journal to your coach? Are you, getting here's the number one. Are you getting sleep? Are you sleeping? I prefer to get my athletes, 9 hours of sleep, and our volume's pretty high. So I love to be in that minimum of 8, somewhere 9 being optimal. And, are you doing that? If you're not doing that, don't talk to me about recovery methods, because that's number one. And so that's the key. It's the people who do those little things. And then I tell you what, here's an intangible that's tough to put your finger on. It's that person who, when they get on the platform or on the field of battle, they can use that whole nervous energy to lift them up. And that is, I'm still working, we talk a lot about mindset, with our athletes, but still, some athletes like Jordan Cantrell, when he competes, he's going to lift more on the stage than he does in the gym every single time. And so, which in weightlifting is very hard because it's so technical, but that dude is a killer. And so that is a big key right there. It's like, they do the little things. Obviously they train hard, but then they perform at that level that's just, it's Michael Jordan. It's, it's the Ed Coans. It's the guy who can just, they can elevate their game when it's game time.
Yeah.
So
that's huge. That's an intangible that it's almost hard to even describe, what that mentality is. So that's unfortunately what you just said is not that exciting for a lot of people, but it's so true. You gotta,
so true.
If you're not sleeping, definitely don't go and purchase a 20-pack of dry needling sessions to help you squat more. So
it's so ridiculous. It's like people will be like, I went to the chiropractor, I went to the massage therapist, I slept 3 hours. I'm like, man, save your money. Go buy something to help you sleep. Go buy there's some natural things you can do that helps with sleep. That try that, man. That before all this other mess. So.
One thing you might really enjoy, Travis, we did a podcast with Dr. Stasha Gomanek on sleep, and it was all about it was actually how your microbiome, your gut health, all these things affect sleep, your B vitamins, your vitamin D level, and especially for athletes. So that might be a podcast that you really enjoy.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
All right,
really cool.
well,
Interesting take on that.
Yeah. Well, Brady, any other questions for the Masterful Mash?
No, I think we got some good topics.
All right.
This is an excellent one.
Travis, man, I want to thank you so much for doing this with us. We had a blast. This was one that I knew Brady would be so excited to do with me, and it's one that I had been looking forward to for quite a while. So hopefully we can get you on for a round 2. You've got a ton of ebooks on your site, and you've got a ton of education on your site. Tell our listeners where they can get more information from you and where they can purchase Bar Speed and some of your other books.
If you go to mashelite.com, pretty much everything's on there. There's also, if you want to, donate or become a partner with their online team, you can go to mashelite.com/donate, and that is a nonprofit, so it's a tax write-off as well. So either one, those are the two. Instagram, Mash Elite Performance. So
yeah,
appreciate you guys having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Travis. And I was taking notes the whole time. There's a lot of topics I'd love to dig further in with you. So hopefully we can get around two at some point in the future. But
yeah, I took a lot of notes.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah.
I love it.
Like, there's a few things that you said I'm going to steal. So yeah.
Oh man,
anyway, it'll probably be an ebook. It's something you said.
Well, that would be one of my greatest contributions. Contributions. God. They talk a lot. So, yeah, Travis, thank you so much, man. And we're going to post that link to where your people or our people can donate in the show notes. So if our audience is interested in that, definitely check it out. Obviously, you guys know where we're at, kabukistrength.com, kabuki.ms for all your movement needs. Check out our coaching portal, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks fellas.
Later.
All
right, thank you so much, Travis. That was a blast, man. Really, really great stuff. So hopefully we'll get around to with you at some point, but we really look forward to watching some of your lifters do what they do best.
Thanks. I hope. Yeah, win. I hope. So, thank you, boys.
Thanks, Travis.
I'm going to coach these fools now.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye.